Go drop like rain, nigga, watch me hit those trees.
Yo, what's poppin', gang? We are back at it again to run down what I believe are the most overrated ninja in the Naruto series. And some of these picks may be a little divisive, but I think for the most part I'm on point. But let's start off with an obvious pick, Sakumo Hatake. And now, the reason he's on this list is also the same reason someone would say he doesn't belong on this list. And that's because we only ever hear about his feats. We never see him in action. And because he's already dead and Kakashi talks to him in what I guess is supposed to be purgatory, we don't get to see him be brought back in the war arc, which was probably for the best. I mean, if Jiraiya didn't come back to spare Naruto, I can only imagine what Kakashi would have went through after already having his big heart-to-heart with his dad. But as I'm saying that, for as sad as it sounds, it would have been cool. But if it did happen, and I think the biggest thing for me when talking about Sakumo is that he was stated to be stronger than the Sannin, and the mission that caused the spiral in his life and ultimately made him, well, we know almost nothing about that mission in particular. We don't get a flashback or even a fleshed out description of events, which leads me to believe either this was a top tier mission or an operation that went horribly wrong. Either way, we should have at least some information about it, especially considering that would have given at least a little depth to Kakashi's talk with him, because if I'm not mistaken, we cut away from that conversation too, which means there wasn't much in the way of importance. But this entry is kinda iffy just because his story was only hinted at. But the next entry I've already mentioned in the 3 Sannin, and I'm not talking about the Sannin we meet during the series, I'm talking about the Third Great Ninja War and the encounter that got them that name. And I've always said I think Hanzo gave them this name in a more tongue-in-cheek way than anything, just because from what we see, Hanzo had them dead to rights and didn't look too phased. And the Sannin are actually looking like they're on their last leg, and if we were to give them the strength that they have even just when we meet them, they probably would have flattened Hanzo without a second thought, and he wouldn't have given them the name in the first place. And it's so funny to think that Hanzo is just running around talking about the 3 great ninja who couldn't kill him, making his compliment a self-brag. And the wildest thing is, because we kind of see Hanzo in action, we know he's not the buffest baby in the world, and I wouldn't even call him Kage level. And as I said that, another video was just born, because I'd say the Sannin are well above Kage level, and I don't think Kage level really means anything other than leader of the village at this point, because multiple people single-handedly kill Kage. And yeah, most of those people are highly skilled, but the way Rasa, Gaara's dad, gets Orochimaru off screen leads me to believe he was weaker than Gaara, and thus weaker than Deidara. But that also means I think Orochimaru is around the same level as Deidara, but not quite. See, I have a theory, and it's not confirmed, but I think it's highly likely. I don't think Orochimaru killed the Kazekage. In fact, I would go as far to say I don't even think he was around, because they find the Kazekage's body in a ditch outside the village, but this is after Orochimaru deceived them and had them attack the leaf. And he was able to do this by transforming into the Kazekage. And while I believe it's possible for him to have actually been hands-on, what's more likely is while the Sound 5 killed the Kazekage, Orochimaru was already en route or back at the village posing as the Kazekage. Because I refuse to believe that day 1 of being Kazekage, Orochimaru was like, let's attack the strongest village in existence. And an attack like that would take preparation, so Orochimaru needed all the time he could get. But I'm ranting about something completely different at this point, so let's move on to the next entry. Another multi-spot, because it's Kinkaku and Ginkaku. And we see these guys in action, and their power is actually up to par with how they're described, but I think that that's because they got a stupid buff for plot reasons. Because that one-tail cloak that they have should not be that strong, especially since they aren't actually Jinchuriki. And correct me if I'm wrong, but why does eating from the Nine Tails give you a permanent change of DNA when Naruto had the Nine Tails entirely sealed in him and was even conceived, carried, and birthed from a Jinchuriki, and all he got was the whiskers? And don't get me wrong, I think Naruto should have that same permanent ability to transform to a certain amount of tails even without Kurama, but it doesn't seem like he does, when Kinkaku and Ginkaku have it off of a method that usually passes when the meal does. So that's why they're here. And next on this list is definitely not one I expected when I thought up this video, so I'll just call him an honorable mention, but Deidara came to mind just because of a few very small things. One, and this is pretty subjective, but his art is very meh. And secondly, he vastly underutilized his jutsu at every turn, and it kind of just turns into spam. Like, I would have liked it if Deidara had used more intricate designs to do more. Like, if he had formed his clay as a chain for when enemies got too close, so even as a long-range fighter he has a pretty decent close-range attack, or throwing down little drops of clay in front of him as he's running so when he steps on them they propel him, making him faster. And even with that, his style is just kind of explosion, so he's limited in what he can do. But not too much on Deidara because he isn't really technically part of this list. But the Sound 4 are, and notice I said the Sound 4 and not 5. Kimimaro is actually underrated in my opinion, but that's for another video. The reason the Sound 4 make it here is because as a team, as the Sound 4, they operate on a 2 to 3 Jonin level, meaning if there had been one more Jonin when they encountered Genma and Raito in the woods, it would have been over right there. And individually, they couldn't beat single Chunin, and I know everyone was still a Genin at this point, but not really. And even in terms of the story, everyone who went on the Sasuke retrieval mission should have been promoted to Chunin. But hey, that's the video. What are some of your picks for most overrated? How'd you feel about these? Let me know down in the comments. If you liked the video, leave a like, take a comment, and feed a sub to your local scribe. I appreciate you watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and until next time, peace.
That thunder on me clap, make a nigga think before he act. Have a nigga dying on his back, then we double back. Shooters leaving rubber where you at. That's why niggas never wanna match.